disclaimer before I start talking about this show. I won't be talking about it a lot, but there is going to be a bit of reference to suicide and rape in this. So if you are a bit triggered by that or you just don't want to hear about it, I'll put up a disclaimer before each time I talk about it. And I'll also link in the description below like a suicide line and all that kind of stuff, so for you to feel a bit better. So second thing is that before I start this, I also just want to say that yes, this series was in like April it finished, and I'm reviewing this now, but that's because back then I didn't have Netflix, I didn't have this reviewing channel, and also this is going to be another video on its own, but I'm the type of person that not watch something or not be into something if it's super popular, and then like a month later I'll be like, oh, may as well check this out, and then I'll watch it and I'll be like, oh my god, this is incredible, and everyone's like, yeah, we know, we've seen it. Final thing I have to say is that there's a lot of kind of controversy surrounding this TV series, which is understandable with the topics that it deals with and how it deals with them. This is not going to be like this. This is just going to be a straight analytical perspective, so I'm just going to be talking about the plot and all that kind of stuff. I may slightly get into that kind of thing, but it's not my place to talk about that kind of thing. This is a reviewing channel, it's not anything else. So I also may touch on it slightly in like the final thoughts or whatever. So bit of a disclaimer. Let's start. Hello and welcome to Basspick Reviews, and in this episode I will be talking about 13 reasons why. So the plot. Me personally, I thought the plot was heavily romanticized, because just in the way that they portrayed these characters, I'm just gonna say some of these characters acted very out of how they would normally act just to move the plot along, and it was very evident that that's what they did. Like, for example, Alex is one of the characters. He put out that list and he only did it because his girlfriend wouldn't have sex with him. That was very out of character for him, considering the information we know about him prior, and granted we only know about him the first 2 episodes before his tape is revealed. And then for the rest of the series, it's just kind of like, you probably wouldn't do that kind of thing, because he just doesn't seem like the guy who would do it. Like, he isn't defending Bryce whatsoever. He doesn't want to hide behind Bryce whatsoever. He wants to admit what he did and is trying to deal with what's happened. So sometimes they act very out of character purely just to move the plot along, which is completely fine, but it would have been better if they chose a different character who would have matched that action to do it. Probably Justin. I could see Justin creating the list, but not Alex. So if they just changed that to another person, it would have been a lot better, and it still would have moved the plot along, but it wouldn't have been out of character for that action, if that makes sense. The acting. Bit pantomime. Not gonna lie, it's a little bit pantomime, particularly with some of the crying scenes. And now I'm going to be the first one to say I have done musicals, I have done pantomimes, I've done acting, I've done NIDA courses, I did drama for HSC. It is very hard to do a sad scene or a crying scene and for it to not come across as pantomime. I'm going to be the first one to say that it's difficult to do that. But this is my opinion, I felt this show went out of its way to try to make a pantomime. It was very melodramatic, which, again, because for this targeted audience, that's acceptable. This is, even though what topics it deals with, it's around the high school kind of age range. And both guys and girls are very melodramatic in that kind of age range. So it makes sense that these characters were like this. But when you kind of, even though I've only been out of high school for like a month, it's still very evident that it's melodramatic. Even when I was watching the TV series and I was still in high school, I was like, that is some melodramatic acting right there. So it was very hard, and like I said, it's difficult to do a sad scene without it coming across as pantomime. I can only count a few times where it didn't come across as pantomime, because sad is an emotion that can be very overly done, same thing as excited. They're very hard to portray in a way that is not funny, which is really bad, because the show's not funny. Like, some scenes may be funny, but it's not designed to be funny. So for the acting, a bit pantomime, but I can understand why. Cinematography, in all honesty, I thought it was alright. I didn't think it was amazing. There was a couple of shots where I thought they were going somewhere, and I'm like, yes, this is going to be good, and then it didn't. An example of what I can think of would be when the present Clay, when he's got the cut on his head, and it does this thing where he's standing like clearly, and everything in the background is blurred and it's going really fast and the camera's circling him, and I thought, okay, this is going to be a good transition to a flashback. I thought what they could do is start off with him, move around, halfway around, change the saturation of the colors, and then make it to him in the past when Hannah was still there. They didn't do that. They just did a circular motion, and I thought, well, that's supposed to show that he's overwhelmed because he just kind of stood there with a blank expression. He didn't really do anything. So if that's what it was trying to portray, it didn't portray it that well, I'm not gonna lie. But I thought the cinematography was alright. There weren't many scenes shot from Hannah's perspective, which I thought would have been a bit better, particularly for some of the scenes when she's with Clay. So it's like you're right next to him and you can feel what she's feeling. It was all from like the outsider perspective. No one really did it from their perspective, which I feel like would have been a lot more powerful for certain scenes. The casting, in all honesty, I've never read the book. I know this was adapted from a book, but I know for a fact some of my friends who have read the book and then watched the series were kind of like, I did not imagine for these people to look this way, which is completely fine for directors to try to do that, but at the same time, it was a bit jarring for them. Now, like I said, I haven't read the book myself, but some of the characters, when I was hearing about them from people, I wasn't really imagining that's how they would look. And when I actually said this to someone, they thought I meant ethnicity-wise. I did not mean ethnicity-wise. I just meant their physical appearance, if that makes sense. Like, for Hannah, I thought was pretty spot on. Clay was not that spot on for me. I was expecting a bit more, because he's supposed to be like a nerd. I was expecting a bit more of the stereotypical side of a nerd, and not like a cool nerd, if that makes sense. But just some little things like that. Script. Not gonna lie, I thought it was pretty believable. I thought the script was very well written. Again, some parts are a little bit cringy, like just when they were saying FML, OMG, all that kind of stuff. Just because I personally haven't said that since I was like 14 or 15. I'm now 18. I may say that through a text, but not like in real life. And it does come across slightly cringy sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. But it was pretty good. The script writing was pretty believable. And the thing I did like what they did is that they made, for the script, they made each character kind of go through what someone probably would go through in a death situation. They had someone who was just overcome with emotion and didn't really know what to do, kind of like Clay. They had the support person, which was like Tony. They had the people trying to help other people, which was like Marcus and Courtney. They had people who were in a bit of denial but then came to realization of what happened, like Alex, like Jess. And then they had the people who were kind of oblivious that it kind of happened, a bit like Bryce relied on. This show relied heavily on emotions, which is completely fine. That's 100% all good that it relied on emotions. But I personally thought it would have been better if the emotions weren't just the depression kind of emotion. If it was a bit more on the character development, for example, because this is going to sound really weird. For the amount of times they reference Hannah in the show, I'm going to be the first one to say, I don't really know that much about her as a character. I don't know much about her. Same thing as, believe it or not, the parents, as Tony, as people who helped her or tried to help her. I don't know that much about him. Like, what do you really know about Tony? He gave the tapes to Hannah for her to record on, and he helps Clay a little bit. We don't know his backstory. We don't know him dealing with the fact that he's gay, which, believe it or not, is a thing that could have been really well explored in that. Same thing with the parents. You don't really know what they were like as parents to Hannah, except in like 3 or 4 flashbacks. Same thing as Hannah. You've got an idea of what she's like, but you don't know fully what she's like. I felt like it was more focused on like Clay and all those ones. And another character I felt like they kind of left out was kind of Sky, because you see in an episode she's got cuts on her arm, and it's kind of like you want to know why. Like, I feel like things like that should be explored a bit more. Now, don't get me wrong, it's in a series, there's 13 episodes, they go for like an hour each. They do their best to develop them, but some of the characters which were important kind of got a little bit to the side to focus on, like Jess, like Bryce, like Justin, like those characters. Would I watch 13 Reasons Why again? Possibly. I say possibly, just because, and I'm going to say this to you as well, I don't care how old you are, I don't care if you're male or female or whatever you want to identify as, or whatever you are. I would only watch the show again if you were in a good mindset, because I've told this to people who are like in year 7 and year 8 at my school. I personally would not want to watch this show when you're like 13, 14, 15, because, or if you're in a depressed state, purely because, again, I didn't really want to talk about this, but just for like a second I will. It does portray the idea of the romanticization, I think that's a word, of suicide. Granted, it was very graphic, the scene, and a lot of people Like, it was fairly disgusting. When I say disgusting, I mean like physically seeing it was a bit intense, not gonna lie. But if you're in a mindset that's bad or you're really young, I would not watch this show. If you're in a pretty good mindset, I would watch it. So that's why I say possibly, because if, you know, just like everyone else, I get into bad mindsets, you know, I get sad and all that kind of stuff. So I would not watch it then, but I would watch it when I'm either neutral or happy. And overall, I'm going to give 13 Reasons Why a 5.5 out of 10. And in my next video, I'm going to be talking about my final thoughts in this show, so you can look forward to that. But at the end of the day, this is just my opinion. Art is subjective, so don't be too protective. Basspick out. There's people outside making noises while I'm making videos. Can you stop? So they keep going. Great.